And needless to say, it is a very contentious issue on the Hill. And joining us now with reaction to the bill is Aaron Sherb, Director of Legislative Affairs at Common Cause. That's a watchdog group in D.C. He supports the bill. Also, Brad Todd, a political strategist and partner with On Message Inc. He is a GOP consultant. Aaron, let's start with you. Let's kind of take on the main criticism. The other side is saying this is a federal takeover of our elections. It does deal with a range of issues: absentee ballots, voter registration, early voting, gerrymandering, ethics requirements, campaign finance. What is your response to the idea that this is just too much and too big and too much federal control?
Well, look, the American people demanded and voted for comprehensive reform. And so as our democracy continues to be under attack, from former President Trump's big lie to the insurrection on the Capitol on January 6th to Republican state legislatures trying to suppress the vote, largely in Black and brown communities, it demands a big response. And the For the People Act is exactly that comprehensive, bold response that the American people voted for. It helps ensure that our freedom to vote, regardless of our age, race, or zip code, and it helps ensure to get big money out of politics so that billionaires can't continue to buy elections.
And Brad, your response in terms of what the Dems are saying here, that this is necessary because we see a lot of misinformation out there, if not outright lies, about what happened in November. And two, we see now states, Georgia, Florida, among the wave now, kind of tightening up voter laws in their own respective states. More states are going to come online. So why not a move that helps kind of shore up the election and not make it a patchwork of state policies, but a federal one?
Well, first off, the elections have always been the purview of state law, and this will be an unprecedented power grab. I mean, I think the better name for this bill is the Politician Protection Act. If you think the politicians in Washington should be able to rig the game the way they think most advantages them, then you should support this bill. But if you think that elections should be easy to vote and hard to cheat, you should oppose it. Voter ID is a central part of this, right? The Democrats who are trying to pass this on a party line vote want to take away the ability of states to require voter ID at the polls. Now, one false vote dilutes every legitimate. And that's why Americans support voter ID. 77% of Americans favor voter ID laws. They use ID every time they check into a hotel, rent a car, cash a check. It's a completely reasonable security measure. And in fact, 63% of Democratic voters support voter ID. That's at the heart of this effort, is to take away the security that comes with voter ID. Absentee ballots. You mentioned the Georgia law. The Georgia law actually guaranteed more weekend days of absentee voting, and it standardized absentee voting across the state. It didn't reduce it. We want it to be easy to vote and hard to cheat. And the Democrats they're not really quite interested in doing that hard to cheat part. And if you believe in election security, as every American should, then you believe that every vote should count, and every vote should count one time equally. And that's why we should allow the states to continue to do election security law that's reasonable and allows everyone to vote, but makes it hard to cheat.
And Brad, just a quick follow-up. Why do you think those states that are acting on this issue think it's necessary, since there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud in the November election? And the idea that there was led to an insurrection at our Capitol.
It's a purview of states to decide what security measures they should have. For instance, in Georgia, they decided that absentee ballots now are going to be printed on watermark paper, like a car title. That's very different.
The question is, why do you think they're doing it now?
Because we've always been trying to secure our elections. And if you like, the states has always been under state purview. And also, it's not just states Democrats won. Look at West Virginia. They secured the election laws in West Virginia. In Iowa, they've secured elections. They passed election reform, security reform. These kinds of laws are passed every cycle by the states. They pass them because when they think they need to modify their system to add more layers of security to make sure that everyone's votes count. Your vote doesn't count if there's a vote in the same box that was illegal. Your vote's been diluted. We all have an equal interest in making sure that all votes are secure. Voting is incredibly easy in this country, and it should be. It should be. And if you look at these states that have passed voter ID laws, for instance, in Georgia, if you don't have an ID of the driver's license, you can get a free state ID. If you don't have a free state ID, you can use another form of ID. There are reasonable reforms to change. And the thing that's the overreaction is this overcorrection by Democrats in Congress. Now, you also mentioned the Federal Election Commission in that piece.
Real quick, let me get Aaron jump in. Is this an overreaction, Aaron?
Absolutely not. Look, the provisions in the For the People Act are tried and true solutions that have passed in red, blue, and purple states around the country. Everywhere for automatic voter registration in West Virginia, in Alaska, and many other red, blue, and purple states. And when these democracy reforms are on the ballot, they often pass easily a 60, 65, sometimes over 70% of the vote. And these reforms are wildly popular among Democratic, Republican, and independent voters. So it's really only in Washington, D.C. and with congressional Republicans where these are considered partisan or controversial.
It ought to be, well, hang on a second. I'm from Tennessee originally, where they've had early voting since 1994. A majority of the people use it. And in fact, Republicans typically win the early vote there. But if you look at the state of New York, Chuck Schumer's home state, there's virtually no early voting. It's very hard to vote early in person in New York. It's not very easy to vote in person early in Delaware, President Biden's home state. That should be their choice.
Common Cause is working on that. Our chapters in Delaware and New York are trying to expand the vote in there as well to make sure that all voters can have their voices heard and votes counted in New York and Delaware too. So I appreciate you bringing that up as well.
But we don't hear Chuck Schumer saying that Delaware and New York are suppressing the vote. You're saying that Georgia, by expanding early voting, is suppressing the vote. We don't hear that accusation thrown around with New York and New Jersey and Delaware. This should be at the option of the state to design the system that is most secure and suits their state.
Aaron, we're out of time. 10 seconds to respond to that.
Well, Republicans clearly didn't like the results in Georgia and Arizona and elsewhere, so they're changing the rules to try to get the result that they want. So we need the bold For the People Act to correct some of these abuses.
All right, gentlemen, thanks so much for a lively debate. Appreciate that. It is a fascinating issue. We'll see what they come up with, anything on Capitol Hill. Thank you both for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.